What is going on, everyone? You're tuned into the Invest in Hockey podcast. Today is October 9th, 2024. We have undergone and seen the first NHL game played in North America. Obviously, last weekend we saw some fun happen in Prague and the good old Sabres going down 0-2. But today I am joined here with
Eric Wilson.
and we're going to be talking NHL hockey, talking about the start of the season and what we think the season might look like come the end. Because I know we have a little bit of predictions in store, and we could kind of look back on this come the end of the season. But so far, a couple standouts to me. Obviously, yesterday, Dylan Guenther's great performance led to a really big buzz online. But was there anything else that you had your eyes on the past 5 days of this NHL hockey?
100%. There's a lot of standouts, and I mean the one takeaway I can see is that speed kills. There are some fast young players out there, and they dominated and they looked good from start to finish. They looked like they were in shape. I won't call out guys who didn't look good, but there were a lot of standout players, and it was only 3 games last night, but it felt like a perfect slate to watch since there was that 10 o'clock one.
Oh yeah. No, a lot of good hockey, and it was finally nice to be able to watch some meaningful NHL hockey that actually, meant something to my fantasy team too, because it feels like it's been almost 6 or 7 months since looking at my fantasy lineup. And obviously, we had a big night last night. Reinhardt, Gunther, Keller, McAvoy even chipped into the
Oh, he did.
scoring for this squad. And yeah, no, I'm pretty optimistic for this year. But what else were you looking at?
You know what? I did release my predictions to you and some of the boys yesterday for the season. I didn't really have all of them done. I didn't really have like a finals matchup set, but I did kind of create that last night. So I think most importantly, we'll go through that so we can have those receipts for the end of the season. I don't expect a lot of them to be correct, but I expect a lot of them to be close. And I really want to talk about the Rook of the Year conversation because that's something that kind of has some implications, and I don't think people are aware of. Everyone who's eligible for the Calder Trophy, things like that. So I think we want to alert our viewers as to what the real scoop is.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, without further ado, I know I want to get us started here because I started off last season and I actually wanted to pull up what I had last year as my
Yeah,
prediction
good call.
because
Yeah.
I know last year was a little bit of a wild card. It kind of felt like there was a lot of parity in the NHL, obviously, with first Canadian team making the Stanley Cup final since we've seen, I believe, the Montreal Canadiens just a couple years ago, even though you could call that Stanley Cup final an asterisk in a sense, but I'm just trying to pull it up here.
Yeah,
Uh,
you had some nice predictions last year, and that I mean, predictions are always supposed to be bold, but it's nice when you see a guy who is maybe a finalist for a trophy, even if he doesn't win, because still feels pretty accurate. So
yeah. So as of last year, my predictions were Jake Onger to win the Vezina. That did not happen. Logan Cooley to win the Calder. That did not happen. Cale Makar to win the Norris. That did not happen. Austin Matthews to win the Rocket. That did happen. So, you know,
yeah, yeah,
Leon Draisaitl to win the Hart Trophy. That did not happen. And the Jack Adams Coach of the Year, I actually had Jay Woodcroft as my Coach of the Year, who ended up getting fired like 10 games in. So that was a tough pick. Selke Trophy winner was Nico Hischier, which I don't even think he was a candidate to win it, but he did have a pretty good season. So I feel like
yeah.
that was a decent pick, but obviously not correct. And Edmonton Oilers were my Stanley Cup champions, which they just came up short by 1 game. So only really predicting Austin Matthews as the Rocket Richard winner, and the Oilers was the closest I'd say. But besides that, I was pretty bad with my predictions last year.
That's fair. I'm not gonna act like I was very sharp either. I believe I had Matthews for the Rocket too. The only other prediction I recall was my Canes pick for the Cup, which was not my original pick. I don't know who my original pick was, but I didn't really have like a list kind of released like you. So I am interested to see if we have any of the same predictions this year. I know
Yeah.
we do have a few in terms of maybe some goaltending calls, but why don't we kind of start with those the standings predictions because I think I liked a lot of your picks. So why don't you kind of start us off in the Eastern Conference with your predictions?
Yeah, so yesterday I sent you my picks for who was going to make the playoffs out of out of the NHL, including the wild card teams, which I don't know how exactly accurate I will be, but I feel like this should be a good general representation. So out of the Atlantic, I have the Bruins, Leafs, and Panthers. I don't really see any of Montreal, Buffalo, or Detroit or Ottawa making a push for the playoffs. I don't really see that as of right now. In the Metro, I have the Rangers, Hurricanes, and Devils. Three of the top teams. I feel like that was a pretty easy pick. And then coming in the wild card, I have the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Red Wings, both being wild card teams. So even though I don't have them in coming through out of their division, I feel like maybe they could be a fringe bubble team for the wild card.
Yeah, that's the wild card picks are probably the easiest to debate just because they're again you're on the fringe of missing, but you have them making the playoffs, which is I'd love to hear a little rational there on Tampa and Detroit. Maybe go from Detroit because I know you're a Patty Kane fan. What about them do you like this year rather than last year?
I mean, I feel like Detroit was good last year, just coming up short by, I think, literally just one game where they won it in overtime, but it still didn't mean anything, which does suck for Detroit fans. But I feel like this is finally the year where they could sneak into the playoffs. Like I said, still being a bubble team, but they do have the emergence of some of their younger players like Lucas Raymond, Moritz Seider to um, kind of help lift the success of that team, if we want to call it. The only issue that still remains for me is their goaltending question mark in net. I don't really think that Cam Talbot was the answer to their problems, especially with Jack Campbell that has now been registered in the players' assistance program. Very unfortunate, but definitely not a good help to the career that he's been on because we know how well he was playing on Toronto. Obviously, big fans of him, and then unfortunately sent down to the AHL. So for me, I do have the Red Wings in the playoffs, but not by much.
Fair. You know what? That's another interesting point is the goaltending talk because like you compared, your wild card picks in Tampa and Detroit, and you could kind of intertwine who the wild card 1/2 is. The one thing I agree with in your case there with your picks is that I do think five teams will come out of the Atlantic, and I think three teams will come out of the Metro. I think the Metro really dropped off after a couple seasons ago when the Penguins and Capitals kind of fell out of the playoff spots. I think that neither of those two are threats. I think Columbus and Philly are fringe teams that probably won't make it. So again, you already have four teams there that you can kind of knock out of the equation. And I think that the only other team you really could possibly debate Detroit with is again possibly a Philly or a Pittsburgh who would have to have a near perfect season from their core guys. But I love about Detroit. It's not just the youth in the top six, but you have guys like Soderblom who are still fighting for spots. You have Berggren still there. You have a lot of young guys who can make an impact, maybe squeeze in the top six, but we're seeing a lot of like solidified top sixes this year, like already it seems like look at Chicago last night. They looked like they had that top six with Teravainen, Bedard, Bertuzzi, even McCabe in the top six. You kind of see guys like that, and you're like, okay, they're gonna play like the full year in the top six. So I'm excited
Yeah.
to actually watch this year's hockey and see guys together for more than 20 games,
Yeah, for sure.
Cooley, Guenther, another line that looked great. I think those guys will stay together for sure. It just makes sense, right?
Yeah, even watching that game too, I'm a big fan of Cooley, but he didn't really look too great to me last night. I don't know if he really had
No, he
uh
did. He did.
I don't know. He wasn't really someone that I kind of had my eye on coming out of yesterday's games. A lot of blind backhand passes to the middle of nowhere, which I thought was a little bit out of his character, but I guess when you can connect on them, they just do lead to highlight reels. So I wasn't really a big fan of Cooley and how he looked yesterday. He just really struggled, but I feel like Gunther looked really good. That was kind of my standout, and obviously Keller looked phenomenal yesterday. So that was a pretty good game to watch. But leading us into our West, my predictions are coming out of the Central are the Dallas Stars, Colorado Avalanche, Minnesota Wild. Coming out of the Pacific, the Vegas Golden Knights, the Oilers, and the Canucks. And then two wild card teams, which I think could easily be the top of the divisions in the East if they were in the Atlantic and Metro. It just goes to show how strong that the West is. Are the Jets and the Predators? I think they're both really talented teams, and it goes to show, like I said, how strong the West is because these two wildcard teams could easily be at the top of the division in the East. That's just my particular opinion, but I think the Jets are still going to be a good team led by Connor Hellebuck, and it's going to be a dogfight out in there. So,
Oh yeah, yeah. So you have the Jets as the 3 seed, correct?
no, I have them as a wild card.
Oh, as a wild card. Okay, wow. Yeah, I think people sleep on them. They talked about it last night after the slate of games, how Winnipeg's the most slept on Canadian team by far. The only other team that could come close is Ottawa this year, but again, it's rather for them, you can't say anyone's sleeping on them yet. We haven't seen anything. So Winnipeg's that team that again they're slept on. Their regular season last year was just as good as Edmonton's, Calgary's, anyone's, right? And it was more just the playoffs that they fell apart. But they got a good team. I'm excited to watch that team, and I agree with your picks there. Now, where do you have Minnesota?
So I have Minnesota in as third in the Central.
All right, yeah, they look good. They have Spurgeon back this year, which is a key defensive player. He's been always been great all around. I think the one team I'd ask you about, just because we were on this topic, but what do you think Utah can do this year?
I feel like Utah could be in the mix for a playoff, or sorry, for a playoff appearance, but I don't really see them as like a clear-cut slam dunk playoff team. They looked good last night to me, like without any bias or anything. I thought the game was pretty electric. They looked like they were all over a very poor Chicago team, which I think is going to be just as bad, if not
Yeah.
even worse than last year. So it's not like they were playing one of the top five teams in the league, but they definitely dismantled them, is a good way to put it.
Yeah, they did. And it's like you want to get excited over a Utah, first inaugural win, and then you realize, okay, they're playing Chicago. They're playing a team that is 31, 32, call it, in the NHL. And it sucks to say, but outside of a few mistakes they made, it shouldn't have been a close game like that. They could have kept it a 3-1 or 4-1 game. So
Yeah, for sure.
it's tough. I will say one thing I have to mention because it sticks to the West, but you gotta have can't be having Pat Maroon out there as much because he played way too much last night, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
he's brutal.
But I like your picks there. The mine wouldn't be too different. I would definitely have the Oilers as the 1 seed in the in their div there. I think the Pacific, I think they're just going to dominate the Pacific. I know there's a lot of rivalries, which, when teams are rivals, I think the games can kind of go back and forth. Ottawa, Toronto being an example where the Leafs sometimes struggle against Ottawa. Leafs sometimes struggle against Montreal, even though they're, a better team usually, right? I think that Edmonton, those the clear cut number one. Um, they've improved just as much as almost any other team in the offseason, and I don't know, they have the motivation to get back to the playoffs, and it's revenge season for them, right?
No, for sure.
And then the only other pick that I'd question if I was a viewer, I agree with it, but Vancouver, I think some guys have them super low, some guys have them super high. Like they didn't really get worse, but they brought in a couple guys like DeBrusque, who I think we know what he's capable of with a guy like Pedersen, right? So I like your picks. I think you'll be pretty bang on in terms of percentages. So
Yeah.
and then I guess that leads me into my predictions. Instead of standing predictions, I'll go right into my award predictions, and you can kind of chime in after each pick. But what award should we start with here, Sans?
Oh, you gotta go with the Vezina.
All right, yeah, Vezina, Igor Shesterkin's going to be locked in. He knows his value, that's for sure.
Whew.
I'm not going to go back on my pick. I have thought of Igor for probably 2 months now. I think like he's always been knocking on the door to be a contender for that, but I think he's going to show that um, he's the guy. And if the Rangers can lock in the 1 seed in the Metro, I think it's really going to be up to him. So
Yeah, I got Igor too, so we're that's
yeah,
a wash right there. I think he's gonna be in contention for sure, no
oh
matter
yeah,
unless he gets, injured. But
yeah. And there's not many guys with more experience, regular season plus
yeah,
playoffs, that are under the age of like 30. You know what I'm trying to say? So I think that's a
yep.
big factor too. I'll go right into a big player prediction here with the Rocket. I've got Connor McDavid winning the Rocket this year. I think people see him at like that 40 goal line, call it 45 goals maybe, but I think he's gonna turn into a bit of a McKinnon type player where he shoots the puck more in the regular season. And I think that especially when he's not playing with a guy like Hyman all season, it looks like Hyman might be spread out between the two lines. I think McDavid's gonna, take it upon himself, which we've seen in playoffs and regular season. I'll give him that, and I'll go right into my next McDavid predictions, which are the Hart Trophy and the Art Ross as well. So I don't know what you think of that, but it's a bit, I don't know. I don't think I've ever had someone winning three awards, but there's just no, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be as close this year in terms of competitors. I think I do have a sleeper for the Rocket, and that's Kirill Kaprizov.
Hmm.
Um, but it just seems like it's totally different teams you're looking at, totally different players on different teams. Like, you know what I mean? Kirill's impact's going to be shown through, the PP1 and a guy like Eriksson Ek who's going to be really, really helping him there all around the ice. He's going to have Zuccarello, who's a good player, in the mix there, and maybe even Rossi with the top line, right? So like for Kaprizov, it's about him getting the Wild to the playoffs. And I think he's going to have to score a lot to do that. So I'll stick to what the real predictions are. So I have McDavid for Art Ross, Rocket, and what's the third one? I'm blanking here.
Which one?
The three I just said, Rocket, Art Ross, and
The Heart?
yeah, Hart as well. So I've got McDavid for those three. I got Igor for my Vezina. I've got Cale Makar for the Norris. I can't give it to anyone else. I'm not going to go and pull an NHL fantasy and say Noah Hannafin has a shot because he doesn't. Um,
Hmm.
I'll stick with Makar. So, um, oh, and I guess I'll have to get to these boring predictions now. Jack Adams, I have Peter Laviolette, Rangers.
Okay.
He's a veteran. We all, we just talked about this yesterday, Sans. We watched him Road to the Winter Classic back in the day.
Yep.
He stands on business, so. Uh,
Hey,
I think that's a good pick, and I think I'd be pretty happy looking back on that, even though there were no bets placed on him. So
hey, we gotta place those bets, man. You can't just say you gotta bet on it?
yeah, hey, it is true. I will tell you. Um, I guess there's a few. I don't know if I'm forgetting any picks. I guess Rookie of the Year is the last one I'm probably forgetting, but
Calder, Stanley Cup, and
yeah.
Selke.
Oh yeah, okay, can't forget that. I'll go into Selke. I think Barkov wins it again. He he
Okay.
he punished those Bruins yesterday. It wasn't just him, it was the Panthers who punished them. And there's a lot of frustration boiling in for me. It's seeing all the haters, all the Bruins haters, but you know what? 6-4 is not that bad. So yeah, but I'm going Barkov there. Stanley Cup picks. I think Dallas is going to get to the finals this year, and I think they're going to beat a strong Devils team. So
Hmm.
while I want the Rangers to go far too, I just because they're a good young team, I think the Devils are going to leave some engine fuel in there. I think that the Devils are going to be able to get by any team in the East. I think they're going to come out strong, and I think again people are going to sleep on them all season, but we know Markstrom. I think he's going to match up well to any goalie, and you also have Allen there to help him rest a little. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, pretty good picks. I wouldn't say that I'm far off to disagree with like any of them, but I do have my own picks a little bit of a difference here. So I'm going with Macklin Celebrini to win the Calder. I feel like he's going to be the standout rookie. He should be drafted first overall, but Mitchkov should give him a run for his money. I
Mhm.
don't know how I feel about the Logan Stankoven hype. I don't think that he's going to be in that conversation, but we'll see.
Mhm.
For the Norris, I have Cale Makar, easily the best defenseman in the NHL. And I feel like this year he's just going to show people that again. Last year, dealing with a little bit of an injury. Rocket Richard, Austin Matthews again. I think it's the easy pick to say Matthews is going to win the Rocket, but I don't know. I feel like with the weight of him being the captain now, I've been a little bit more weary about taking his over goals because we've had conversations and I think his line's
Yeah,
55 and a half right now.
yeah.
And even still, I'm not 100% certain if he will crack that 50 number. I'm thinking more around 47 to 48 for him this year. I'm hoping for 70. I'm hoping for 80. I'm hoping for whatever number he could get to because we're always cheering for Austin Matthews, but we'll see. Winning the Hart Trophy, I got Cale Makar, defenseman. First time we've seen a defenseman win in the past couple years, I think. So Cale Makar, I'm definitely interested to see it if anyone grabs any tickets on him. The Art Ross, I got Connor McDavid, Jack Adams. I got Pete DeBoer for the Dallas Stars, which I think is going to be a pretty good bet considering they'll be above average regular season team, and hopefully he'll be able to win a Stanley Cup. Not related to the award, but if they could go into the postseason playing really well, I got my eye on Pete DeBoer for that. Selke, I got Nico Hischier, and for the Stanley Cup champs, I have the Dallas Stars this year.
There you go. There you go. So I guess we're high on Dallas when it comes playoff time. I think we know
Yep.
that depth and defense wins championships, right? So there's lots to be scared of in that Dallas team from the young guys contributing in the playoffs. I think in terms of energy in a third period of a game six, when you have a guy like Stankoven who's only played 10 minutes, you throwing him out there, there's little to no risk. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yep.
So
Yep.
I think that's huge. I will mention one thing. The last defenseman to win the Hart Trophy was before we were born in 2000 from the
Wow.
from the St. Louis Blues. It was Chris Pronger.
Wow. That's crazy.
Which I would not expect that, but I guess he was a bit of a points guy too. So
That's
uh,
wild.
it is pretty wild. I don't know. We'll have to get into other defensemen after that. I'm sure Bobby Orr won a Hart Trophy. I'm no doubts about that in his shorter career. But
Mhm.
I like your picks as well. I think the one thing I forgot to mention, which our viewers can chime in too, but I got Shilovs for the um, Calder Trophy. And that's just because that you don't see goalies win it much, and he's still eligible to win that thing. So with Demko sideline, because we both have Vancouver in that third spot, I think you'd have to give it to a guy like Shilovs who would hold down the fort.
Mhm.
Um, Especially considering their backups Kevin Lankinen. I don't think Lankinen would get more than 20-ish starts. I think they're going to rely on Shilovs, and I think Demko will be out till November. So
Hmm. Yeah. Now a lot of prediction. Anything else before we
we will
wrap
I
it up?
will we will get into our kind of final segment for today, which is our predictions for this Leafs Habs matchup tonight,
Hey,
which we'll be watching. We got a bit of a viewing party going,
boom.
so I'll let you get into yours because I got mine ready to go.
Yeah, so I it was kind of a surprise seeing that Joseph Wall is going to be sitting out tonight's game and is already dealing with a lower body injury because all the time it feels like he's always dealing with something, and that's kind of been the song that his career has sung so far. So Stolar's in net. I feel like he's a great goaltender. I actually have the Leafs losing tonight though. 3-1. I feel like that's going to be the score. Austin Matthews has scored in every single, I believe the stat is every single opening night against the Habs in his career, except for last year. That was the only game that he didn't score, I believe is the stat. So check it out. I don't know if you want to confirm that somehow, but I
Yeah.
believe I remember seeing that last year watching. So I'm riding Austin Matthews anytime goal scorer tonight. I got the Leafs losing 3-1, and I feel like the emergence and return of Kirby Doc is going to be huge tonight. Huge. I got Cole Caulfield scoring 2 goals, and then Kirby Doc scoring the third. Empty netter is my prediction.
Oh, so you have Doc as kind of a goal scorer. Wow. Okay, there you go. So I think Matthews had a dominating night against the Habs last year where I think they beat the Habs in overtime in like an opening night, but he's had a few against the Sens. Um so they beat the Habs 5-4 in 2020. He tallied one assist, no goals. And then he missed first opening night in 2021, which is interesting.
Hmm.
I guess he kicked off the year injured. He was held pointless in Montreal in 2022, and he recorded a hat trick against the Habs in 2023.
Damn. Damn.
And so, okay, so last year was the opening night hat trick. So,
That's crazy.
he could come out sniping, and that was obviously a 69 goal season. But I'm gonna take the Habs to win as well. I think it's going to be a physical game, and I think we're going to see some big bodies getting involved, such as Slavkovsky. I think Lane Hudson's going to get on the score sheet somehow. Could be on the power play too. I'm not too sure, but I think that we will get some power plays. You're going to see lots of open ice, just like we saw last night. It looked like there was just room to skate, uh, room for some goals. So that's kind of my prediction. I'll go with like a maybe a 4-3 win from the Habs, like a good game. And yeah, go Habs, go opening night. I'm not going to root for the Leafs at all this year. So
Hey, no, we'll cheer for Matthews. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to tonight. It should be a lot of fun watching that game. Obviously, see you there. And yeah, I mean, that's going to be our predictions kind of for the 2024-25 NHL season. Leave a comment if you think we got anything right, if we got anything wrong. But yeah, hopefully everyone enjoys the start of the Leafs season tonight and enjoy the game.
enjoy the game, fellas.